The fall of Marcus Kane. The red sand of Kepler-442b crunched under Marcus Kane's boots as he surveyed the small human settlement. 300 souls had called this distant world home for barely 2 years, and now their fate hung in the balance of interstellar politics. As Earth's lead military engineer on the Galactic Coalition Council, Marcus had negotiated dozens of territorial agreements, but something felt different about this one. "The Zephayrains seem unusually interested in this system," remarked Commander Yuki Tanaka, his second-in-command. Her dark eyes scanned the horizon where the alien delegation's ships cast long shadows in the binary sunset. Marcus nodded, his weathered face creased with concern. At 45, he had spent half his life working alongside alien species, building the fragile peace that kept humanity safe among the stars. The Zephayrains had been reliable allies for over a decade, their crystalline forms and melodic communication making them seem almost ethereal compared to humanity's rough edges. "Keep the security teams alert," Marcus instructed. "Ambassador Veltar has been asking too many questions about our mining operations." The next morning brought what should have been a routine diplomatic ceremony. Marcus stood beside the Zephayrian ambassador on a raised platform overlooking the settlement. Children played in the dusty streets below while their parents worked the mineral extractors that made this colony profitable. The scene reminded Marcus why he had dedicated his life to protecting humanity's expansion into the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar's crystalline features shifted in what Marcus had learned to recognize as a smile. "Your species shows remarkable adaptability, Engineer Kane." The alien's voice resonated like wind chimes. "Perhaps too remarkable." Before Marcus could respond, the sky exploded into chaos. Ships descended from the void, their hull markings identifying them as belonging to the Krex Dominion, a warrior species known for their brutal efficiency. The first plasma blasts struck the settlement's power grid, plunging half the colony into darkness. Marcus watched in horror as evacuation sirens wailed and civilians ran for the underground shelters. "Veltar, we need immediate assistance," Marcus shouted into his communicator. But the Zephayrian ships were already retreating beyond the planet's atmosphere. "I'm sorry, Marcus," came the ambassador's voice, distorted by distance and perhaps something else. "The Council has decided that humanity's expansion has become too aggressive. Consider this a correction." The words hit Marcus harder than any physical blow. Betrayal by those he had trusted, those he had called friends. The Galactic Coalition, the organization he had served faithfully for 15 years, was abandoning not just him, but hundreds of innocent civilians. The Krex assault was swift and merciless. Marcus rallied the colony's minimal defenses, but they were engineers and miners, not soldiers. One by one, his team fell around him. Dr. Sarah Hoffman, the colony's chief scientist, died shielding a group of children. Lieutenant Rodriguez, barely 23 years old, held a choke point until plasma fire overwhelmed his position. Marcus found himself trapped in the colony's command center with the last dozen survivors. Through the reinforced windows, he watched Krex warriors execute civilians in the streets. The sight burned itself into his memory, the flash of energy weapons, the fall of bodies, the silence that followed. "Sir, the main power core is breached," reported Corporal Jenkins, blood streaming from a head wound. "We have maybe 10 minutes before total failure." That's when it happened. Marcus felt something shift in his neural implant, the standard issue device that allowed real-time translation and communication across species. The familiar blue interface flickered and died, replaced by something else entirely. Red text scrolled across his vision in a language he had never seen, but somehow understood. "Betrayal detected. Coalition protocols suspended. Initiating emergency system. Void. Hunter protocol activated. Current level 0. Objectives updated. Survive. Eliminate threats. Evolve." Pain shot through Marcus's skull as the system integrated with his nervous system. He could feel it mapping his muscle memory, cataloging his skills, analyzing his psychological profile. Most disturbing of all, he could sense its hunger, like a living thing feeding on his anger and despair. The first Krex warrior to breach the command center door never saw death coming. Marcus moved with impossible speed, his bare hands finding the alien's throat with surgical precision. As life faded from his enemy's eyes, Marcus felt a surge of dark satisfaction that had nothing to do with survival. First kill registered, experience gained, level 1 achieved. New abilities unlocked, enhanced reflexes, combat instinct. The system whispered promises in the back of Marcus's mind: power, vengeance, the ability to never be weak or betrayed again. Each kill brought more rewards, more enhancements, more reasons to embrace the violence. By the time the Krex retreat came, Marcus had eliminated 17 enemy combatants. He stood among their bodies, his hands steady despite being covered in alien blood. The other survivors looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Even Corporal Jenkins, a veteran of 3 conflicts, seemed unsettled by what he had witnessed. "Sir," Jenkins ventured carefully, where did you learn to fight like that?" Marcus stared at his reflector. On in a broken monitor screen. His eyes had changed, taking on a predatory gleam that hadn't been there hours before. The system pulsed in his mind, already planning, already hunting for the next target. "I don't know," he lied. The rescue ships arrived 3 days later, but they found only Marcus alive. He told the investigators that he had fought desperately to save the others, that the Krex had simply been too numerous. He omitted the part about hunting down the survivors one by one, the way their deaths had fed the system's hunger, the way their screams had sounded like music. Level 5 achieved, stealth capabilities unlocked, psychological manipulation enhanced. The system had made him efficient. It had made him deadly. Most importantly, it had made him feel powerful in a galaxy that had shown him nothing but betrayal and weakness. Standing in the ruins of the colony he had failed to protect, Marcus Kane made a choice that would echo across the stars. He would never be vulnerable again. He would never trust alien words or promises. He would become something that even the mighty Galactic Coalition would learn to fear. The Void Hunter was born from humanity's darkest hour, and the galaxy would never be the same. In his final report to Earth Command, Marcus wrote, "Total colony loss, no survivors except myself. Recommend immediate military response to Krex aggression." He omitted the part about the system, about what he was becoming, about the hunger that now drove him forward. The system agreed with his decision. After all, prey was easier to hunt when it didn't see the predator coming. Level 6 achieved. Next objective, acquire vessel. Begin hunt. As Marcus boarded the transport ship that would take him away from Kepler-442b, he felt the system catalog every person on board. 17 potential targets, 17 opportunities to grow stronger. The thought should have horrified him. Instead, it made him smile. The man who had once dedicated his life to protecting humanity was gone. In his place stood something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The Void Hunter Protocol had found its perfect host in a broken, betrayed human soul, and Marcus Kane had only just begun to hunt. The transport ship disappeared into the void between stars, carrying with it a darkness that would soon spread across the galaxy. Behind them, the dead colony served as a monument to the day humanity's greatest protector became its greatest threat. But in the depths of space, other forces were already moving. The Galactic Coalition had made an enemy of the wrong species, and they would learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their diplomacy. It was their ability to adapt, to survive, and to become something greater than their circumstances demanded, even if that something was a monster. The Hunter's Redemption. 5 years had passed since Kepler-442b, and the galaxy whispered a new name in the darkness: the Void Hunter. Marcus Kane no longer existed in any meaningful sense. The man who had once built bridges between species had become something that tore them down, one kill at a time. Station Omega-7 drifted in the shadow of a dead star, its corridors filled with the worst criminals and smugglers the galaxy had to offer. It was the perfect hunting ground. Marcus moved through the crowds like a ghost, his appearance altered by the system's biological modifications. Taller now, with reflexes that bordered on supernatural, he had become the apex predator in a universe full of prey. Level 47 achieved. New target acquired. Captain Vexnari, Krex Warlord. Reward, 15,000 experience points. The system's interface painted targeting information directly onto Marcus's retinas. Captain Vexnari sat in the station's cantina, surrounded by bodyguards and bragging about his latest conquest. Marcus recognized the armor configuration, the ceremonial scars. This was one of the warriors who had participated in the Kepler-442b massacre. For a moment, something flickered in the depths of Marcus's consciousness. A memory of children playing in red sand, of Dr. Hoffman's laugh as she explained her latest geological discovery, of Lieutenant Rodriguez showing him pictures of his sister back on Earth. The memory brought pain, and the system immediately flooded his mind with chemical suppressants. Emotional interference detected, correcting, focus on target. Marcus slipped into the cantina's shadows, the familiar hunger rising in his chest. 47 levels of enhancement had made him into something barely human. He could see in multiple spectrums, move without sound, kill with surgical precision. The Void Hunter protocol had kept its promises, making him powerful beyond his wildest dreams. But as he prepared to strike, something unexpected happened. Marcus Kane. The voice came from behind him, speaking in perfect, unaccented standard. Marcus spun, his enhanced reflexes bringing weapons to bear in milliseconds. A human woman stood in the shadows, her gray eyes steady despite having a dozen ways to die pointed at her. "My name is Sarah Chen," she said calmly. "I'm with the human resistance. We need to talk." Marcus had heard rumors of the resistance, humans who had refused to accept the coalition's betrayal. Most intelligence suggested they were terrorists and criminals, barely worth the coalition's attention. Looking at Sarah Chen, Marcus realized the intelligence had been deliberately wrong. She was perhaps 35, with the bearing of a soldier and scars that spoke of real combat. More importantly, she looked at him without fear, as if she knew exactly what he had become, and wasn't impressed. "You're not here for Vexnari," Marcus said, his weapon still trained on her. "Neither are you, not really," Sarah replied. "You're here because a system in your head is telling you to be. How long since you made a choice for yourself, Marcus? How long since you were actually human?" The words hit him like physical blows. The system immediately began damage control, flooding his mind with anger and aggression. But something in Sarah's voice cut through the chemical haze, reaching the buried remnant of who he used to be. "Warning, unauthorized neural intrusion detected. Eliminating target recommended." "The system wants me to kill you," Marcus said, surprised by how much effort it took to speak the words. "Of course it does," Sarah replied, "because I represent something it can't control. Choice, free will, the part of you that's still human." She slowly reached into her jacket, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. What she withdrew made Marcus's blood run cold. A datapad displaying technical specifications he recognized all too well. "The Void Hunter protocol isn't some random system malfunction," Sarah explained. "It's Zephayrain technology, designed to turn humans into controlled weapons. They've been testing it for years, using betrayal and trauma to activate the conditioning. You're not the first, Marcus. There are dozens of others scattered across the galaxy." The revelation shattered something fundamental in Marcus's understanding of himself. He had believed his transformation was unique, a dark evolution triggered by betrayal. To learn that it was planned, that his pain had been manufactured, brought a rage that even the system couldn't suppress. System integrity compromised, initiating emergency protocols, subject termination authorized. Pain lanced through Marcus's skull as the system attempted to override his motor functions. For 5 years, it had been a symbiotic relationship, the system providing power in exchange for violence. Now he understood the truth. He had never been the hunter. He had always been the hunted. "Fight it," Sarah urged, stepping closer despite the obvious danger. "Remember who you were before. Remember what you were fighting for." Images flooded Marcus's mind, not the sanitized memories the system preferred, but raw human experiences. The joy on a colonist's face when their first crop succeeded, the pride in Rodriguez's voice when he talked about his promotion, the sound of children's laughter echoing across red sand. The system fought back viciously, sending waves of agony through his nervous system. It offered him everything: unlimited power, immortality, the ability to reshape the galaxy in his image. All he had to do was eliminate the woman in front of him and return to the hunt. But for the first time in 5 years, Marcus Kane made a choice based not on system directives, but on something deeper, something fundamentally human. No. The word came out as a whisper, but it carried the weight of absolute determination. The system recoiled as if struck, its hold on his mind weakening. Subject rebellion detected. Activating termination sequence. Neural overload in 10, 9, 8. "There's a way," Sarah said urgently. "A kill switch hidden in the system's base code. But you have to want it more than the power. You have to choose to be human again." Marcus closed his eyes and reached deep into the system's architecture with his mind. There, buried beneath layers of alien code and psychological conditioning, he found it. A single line of human programming, probably inserted by some engineer who had realized what they were really building. The countdown reached 0 just as Marcus activated the kill switch. The pain was indescribable. 5 years of artificial enhancement, chemical dependency, and psychological conditioning fought against his decision. The system tried to preserve itself, offering fragments of its former power, begging him to reconsider. But Marcus had remembered something the system had tried to make him forget. Humans were strongest not when they stood alone, but when they stood together. He looked at Sarah, this woman who had risked everything to reach him, and drew strength from her presence. Around the galaxy, he realized, there were others like her, humans who had refused to give in to despair, who were fighting to preserve something worth saving. The system died with a sound like breaking glass. Marcus collapsed to his knees, feeling more human than he had in years. The enhancements were gone, the constant hunger silenced, the artificial clarity replaced by beautifully complex human emotion. He was weak, mortal, and completely himself for the first time since Kepler-442b. "Welcome back," Sarah said, offering him her hand. As Marcus stood, he felt the weight of 5 years of crimes settling on his shoulders. He had killed hundreds, maybe thousands. He had become exactly the monster the galaxy expected humans to be. "I can't undo what I've done," he said quietly. "No," Sarah agreed, "but you can help us make sure it never happens again. The Zephayrains have 13 more hunters active in this sector alone. They're planning to use them to justify a preemptive strike against Earth." Marcus looked around the cantina, seeing it clearly for the first time in years. Beings from dozens of species sat together, drinking, trading, living their lives in the shadow of forces they didn't understand. The Galactic Coalition had betrayed humanity, but that didn't make every alien his enemy. "What do you need me to do?" The question marked the true beginning of Marcus's redemption. Over the following months, he worked with the human resistance to locate and free other Void Hunters. Each rescue was dangerous, requiring him to confront what he had become, while helping others remember what they had been. Some couldn't be saved. The system had integrated too deeply, the artificial personality consuming the original human completely. Marcus was forced to make impossible choices, ending lives to prevent greater suffering. Each death was a reminder of how close he had come to losing himself completely. But others could be reached. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist turned hunter after her research station was destroyed. Captain James Wright, a merchant marine who had watched his crew die in a coalition police action. They formed the core of what became known as the Reclaimed, humans who had been broken by the system and rebuilt themselves stronger. The final confrontation came on Zephyr Prime itself, the crystalline homeworld of humanity's former allies. Marcus and his team infiltrated the planet's research facility, where they discovered the horrifying scope of the Void Hunter project. Hundreds of humans were in various stages of conditioning, their personalities being systematically destroyed and rebuilt. Ambassador Veltar was there, no longer the friendly diplomat Marcus remembered. The years had changed, too. He Zephayrains' crystalline features into something cold and predatory. "You cannot stop this, Marcus Kane," Veltar said, his voice now carrying undertones of menace rather than friendship. "Your species is too dangerous to be allowed freedom. The Hunters are simply the first step in a larger program of control." "You're wrong," Marcus replied, feeling Sarah and the other Reclaimed at his back. "You think you broke us, but you only showed us what we're capable of when we choose to stand together." The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The Reclaimed fought not with the cold efficiency of their hunting days, but with the passionate determination of people defending their humanity. They rescued the conditioning victims, destroyed the research facility, and transmitted the evidence of Zephayrian crimes to every news outlet in the galaxy. The scandal brought down the Galactic Coalition within a year. New governments rose from the chaos, many of them led by species that had been marginalized under the old regime. Humanity took its place as an equal partner in a more just galactic community, one built on mutual respect rather than fear. Marcus never fully forgave himself for the years he had spent as the Void Hunter, but he learned to channel his guilt into something constructive, becoming an advocate for beings who had been victimized by systems of power and control. He and Sarah founded the Reclamation Institute, helping others recover from trauma and rebuild their lives. Sometimes, late at night, Marcus would feel echoes of the system's hunger stirring in the back of his mind. The conditioning had left scars that would never fully heal. But he had learned the most important lesson of all. Humans were strongest not when they gave in to their darkness, but when they chose to walk toward the light. The Void Hunter was dead. Marcus Kane had returned. And in his return, humanity had proven that even in their darkest hour, they possessed the most powerful force in the galaxy, the ability to choose who they wanted to be. The galaxy was safer for it, and somewhere among the stars, other beings facing their own dark moments could look to humanity's example and know that redemption was always possible, as long as they were willing to reach for it. That was humanity's true strength, and no system could ever take it away.